Hey, what's going on, guys? UFC Vegas 86, Jack Hermansson versus Joe Pyfer just ended, and this is going to be my full card post-fight. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card and give you my reaction and breakdown. Starting off with the first fight of the night, we have Daniel Marcos versus Aoriqileng. This ended in a no contest due to a groin shot. And basically, Marcos was winning the entire fight. It ended in the second round. First round, Marcos dominated, busted him up, landed a nasty knee as well to the body in the first round. Second round, and I have a massive complaint. This entire breakdown is going to be about Jason Herzog, who I normally consider one of the best refs. He really aggravated me in this fight because Marcos landed a groin shot, unintentional groin shot, and he tells Marcos, watch your shots, blah, blah, blah. Immediately after they return to action, Aoriqileng lands a groin shot, and the ref goes to him and acts as if he landed 3 groin shots already. He's like, you land another one, I'm going to take a point. Keep in mind, this is his first groin shot. Keep in mind, this is like 30 seconds apart. Now, maybe Herzog, I didn't see anything that intended this, but maybe he thought it was intentional as retribution, and that's why he was acting so stern with the Aoriqileng versus Marcos, but it just was super inconsistent, and it was so jarring because it was 30 seconds apart. Then the fight goes a little bit longer, and you have Aoriqileng jumping, you have Marcos throwing a kick, he lands on the groin, and Aoriqileng cannot continue. He never talks to Marcos, talks about taking a point or anything or any disqualification. Not that I think he should have disqualified him. I don't even think he should necessarily taken a point considering the groin shot, but it was just crazy the way he treated Aoriqileng after 1 accidental groin shot, and then the way he treated Marcos for 2 accidental groin shots. They ruled a no contest. Aoriqileng was going to lose anyway. Daniel Marcos was clearly better, landing the better shots. Aoriqileng tried to mix in the grappling. It wasn't happening. Aoriqileng was just looking for big power shots, was unable to find it, was getting busted up, and was going to lose this fight most likely 30-27. Unfortunately, it ends due to groin shots, but Marcos lands 2, Aoriqileng lands 1. Marcos never gets any stern warning or anything like that. Meanwhile, Aoriqileng gets kind of yelled at by Jason Herzog, which I thought was crazy, but it's a no contest. Moving up on the card, we have Hyder Amil versus Fernie Garcia. Hyder Amil wins via second round TKO, standing TKO. First round was crazy. Hyder Amil was beating him up. Fernie Garcia came in on short notice, was hurting him, swarming him, got clipped himself, kind of dropped for a second. Then there was like a mad scramble for a second. They were in the clinch, and you had Amil just smashing with knees up in the clinch. Then there was a takedown, and at one point, I think he hurt him, and then Amil was on his back, and then Garcia reversed it, ended up on his back. Then there was a reversal. There was a crazy scramble, and Amil ended up on top position at the end of the round and was kneeing him to the body from, I believe, side control, or he might have even been standing. And at the end, Amil ended up on his feet and threw kicks to the body from the standing position, while Fernie Garcia was kind of squatted down or maybe on one knee, which I thought was particularly brutal. But Amil clearly dominated the first round, outside of getting clipped the one time. And then the second round, Amil was just putting it on him, beating him up, clipping him up. Garcia was throwing back. It was kind of weird because it was like you could see like almost it needed to be stopped, but Garcia was still throwing back and his body language was looking horrible, and eventually ends up against the fence. Amil's just swarming him with shots. Fernie Garcia's blocking some of them. Then eventually Amil makes the conscious decision to say, oh, I'm going to start ripping the body. Starts ripping the body. It's getting close. Then boom, starts ripping it upstairs. Just starts swarming him upstairs. And eventually Mark Smith finally stepped in. Fernie Garcia on a long losing streak. There's not really much to say. He steps in on short notice, and it actually ended up being a pretty fun fight, but he basically got dominated outside of that one shot. He landed in the first round, but man, he was game. He was fighting for his UFC career. I think the UFC might give him one more opportunity after tonight, considering he took it on short notice. But Hyder Amil actually looked impressive. Watching him on Dana White's Contender Series, he looked kind of amateurish. I thought he looked really clean striker tonight. I think he had really good cardio considering the output he had. I know it only went 2 rounds, and had great knees in the clinch, had the ability to kind of mix in those knees to the body. I think it was from side control. And then I think the kick was from when he was standing up. The kick was definitely when he was standing up. So I think it was unique techniques. He gets it done via second round TKO. Moving up on the card, we have Zach Pauga versus Bogdan Guskov. Bogdan Guskov gets a first round KO. Pauga was winning. He was winning. He was landing some good leg kicks, some good shots. There were some big exchanges. Neither guy was really landing. Pauga got hurt at one point. Like stung, not crazy hurt. He clinched up, and then on the break landed a nasty elbow that I think hurt Guskov, and he never followed up on it. And Guskov was already starting to get tired, has a horrible gas tank, and he just never follows up on it, lets him rest for a bit, and then boom, Guskov catches him. I think it was like a 2-piece. I think it was a right hand that hurt him, and he was kind of hurt, and he wasn't really being defensive, and then there was a couple uppercuts some nasty uppercuts that just puts him down, and brutal KO by Bogdan Guskov. Zach Pauga just, he tried to play with fire and he ends up getting brutally KO'd. He gets clipped badly. And I just think it was, a litany of mistakes. One, not trying to grapple a little bit more early, considering Guskov doesn't have a good gas tank. Two, not being super defensively sound on the feet, considering Guskov has nasty power. And lastly, not capitalizing on that elbow. That elbow, I truly believe, hurt Guskov. It looked like he kind of had jelly legs a little bit, the way he was walking. He never even threw a shot for 30 seconds after that. So horrible fight IQ all the way around. Bogdan Guskov gets a first-round KO. Moving up on the card, Max Griffin versus Jeremiah Wells. Max Griffin gets a split decision. I can't remember what the scorecards were. I think they were all 29-28. Jeremiah Wells won the first round, in my opinion, landed the bigger shots, landed a spinning back fist that kind of took Max Griffin off his feet, kind of stumbled him a little bit. Didn't hurt him badly. Was landing with the jab, was landing big shots. There were some crazy exchanges, and Wells was primarily getting the better of the exchanges. Then at the tail end of the round, you had Griffin hurt Wells, and then Wells shot it on a takedown, got a takedown, but he did no damage. So, it's just, I don't know. The first round, I thought, outside of the last 20 seconds, Wells did, or not Wells, I'm mixing up names now. Griffin did absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I think I mixed that up. I think I mixed up the names. Griffin hurt Wells, and then Wells shot it on a takedown, got a takedown, but didn't do any damage on it. So outside of rocking him at the last 10 seconds, Griffin didn't do anything in the first round. I thought it was clearly Wells. Second round, Wells rocks Griffin, was landing better shots, landing good body work, nasty spinning kicks to the body as well. Griffin kind of hurt him again in the last 30 seconds, not as bad as he did the first round. And then, there was, really nothing else done by Griffin. I think the second round was clearly Wells. He did a lot more damage in the second round than he did in the first. He did still get clipped, but not hurt as badly. And literally the only point, Griffin had really any success, he was very tentative the entire fight. Like, there was a clinch midway through the second round. He came over the top with an elbow, but that was his best shot before, like, the last 30 seconds. So the entire round, Wells is winning, and then he gets kind of clipped the last 30 seconds, and then now he's losing a round maybe. Second round, I think, was very clear Wells. I don't even think it's up for debate. And then the third round, nothing really happened. Griffin landed the better shots and then clinched for like a minute and a half towards the end of the round. Third round was clearly Griffin. Second round was clearly Wells. It comes down to the first round. Wells did more damage in the first round. I know we got clipped at the end, but that was it. Griffin wasn't fighting. He was basically refusing to fight the entire fight, and they give him the split decision. I was disgusted. Then you had Griffin go to his post-fight and complain about the judges' scorecards because it was a split decision. He lost this fight. I won't go as far to say it was a robbery, because when I was watching the first round, I was like, maybe just because he clipped him at the end, maybe he could steal that round. But he just was tentative, doing nothing. He was worried about the power coming back from Wells. Wells didn't have a crazy grappling advantage in this fight, which surprised me. I thought he would have more of a grappling advantage. But basically, it was Griffin worried about the power and speed coming back from Wells and not fighting, and then having these rare moments where he basically would steal moments, steal a round, basically. He stole round one. So it should have been 29-28 Wells. I thought Wells clearly took rounds 1 and 2, lost round 3. Round 3 was an absolute disaster, honestly. I mean, Griffin really did almost nothing in the third round, just stalled out the entire third round almost. But either way, he still won the third round. But it's a robbery. I mean, it's not a robbery. It's close, though. It's close. Disagree with the decision. Jeremiah Wells should have won. Moving up on the card, we have Devin Clark versus Marcin Prachnio. Marcin Prachnio wins via decision. Essentially, it was just Prachnio lighting him up with kicks, stuffing the takedowns. You had Clark land a couple good shots. He would throw some big power shots. Occasionally he would land, but Prachnio would eat it well. Prachnio hurt him in the second round, clipped him with a big shot early in the round, but he was able to survive. And then the third round, Prachnio was really starting to get tired, but he was still landing. It was weird. Like, the body language looked horrible. He was sucking on air, looked like a fish out of water, but he was still landing. And you had Clark moving forward, throwing big shots, but not coming in contact with a lot of them. But he was pressuring, and the commentary team was almost acting like Clark was clearly winning the third. I scored all 3 rounds. I think the judges had all 3 rounds for Marcin Prachnio as well. But it was just the kicks and just the movement. Clark couldn't get any takedowns. All he could do was throw big power shots. And half the time he was worried about the kicks coming back from Marcin Prachnio. And until he slowed down, he really didn't even pressure Marcin Prachnio. So overall, not the greatest fight. But I thought Marcin Prachnio clearly won the decision. And he gets I think he got at least 2 30-27s on this card. But I think it might have been a unanimous 30-27 from all 3 judges. Moving up on the card, we have Loma Lookboonmee versus Bruno Brasil. Ew! Moving up on the card, we have Bolaji Oki versus Timothy Cuamba. I forgot how to pronounce his name. Timothy Cuamba, I think is how you pronounce it. I forgot. Apologies. This fight was actually competitive. It shouldn't have been a split decision. It should not have been a split decision. Oki basically jabbed him up, had a takedown the end of the first round after he caught a head kick, landed some damage off the takedown, won the first round. Second round, Cuamba, and I know I'm butchering it, but I cannot remember how you pronounce it. Got a takedown, was kind of looking for a takedown at like the 3-minute mark, kind of holding on to the leg, eventually got a takedown. Didn't do a whole lot of damage with it, really. Had like an elbow, and then like with 30 seconds to go, Oki got back up. And, you know, there really wasn't a whole lot in the second round. Basically, Cuamba, or Timothy, I'm going to say Timothy, won the second round. Came in on short notice, was much smaller. Won the second round basically with top position and like one elbow from the top. Honestly, it was a horrible round. Then the third round, Oki kind of went back to jabbing him up, being a little bit more aggressive, stuffing the takedowns. Clearly won the third round. Should have been 29-28 Bolaji Oki. I don't know how it ended up being a split decision. I was shocked when I heard that. So Bolaji Oki gets it done. I think it was a little bit underwhelming performance considering, you know, he's taking a guy on who's much smaller than him on short notice. But again, he's taking a guy on short notice too, so it's a change in style. You know, he was supposed to fight, I believe it was Damir Hadzovic, which would have been I think it would have been a much better performance because I think that was a guy kind of being sacrificed to him. They like to build up these Dana White Contender Series guys. But Oki gets it done via decision, even though it's a split decision. I don't know how that ended up happening. Moving up on the card, we have Carlos Prates versus Trevin Giles. This fight was crazy. Giles was pressuring, landing good shots early, lots of low kicks, lots of oblique kicks, and Prates looked slow early. I was regretting my pick. And then the second round, Giles was pressuring again, landing some good low kicks. He was mixing in the takedowns, looking for takedowns. Prates had some good step-in knees to kind of defend that pressure of Giles. And then in the second round, I mean, it was a nasty straight left hand that landed right on Giles' chin, put him to sleep. Prates didn't look that good in this fight overall, but it doesn't really matter how good he looked in the fight considering he got this nasty KO. Giles' chin has kind of always been an issue. He looked decent against Dricus du Plessis before he got KO'd. Trevin Giles moving down a weight class. I think maybe that weight cut has made his chin a bit worse. He was on his way to winning this fight. But when he started to slow down, the footwork wasn't as good. Prates kind of started getting his timing and rhythm. He was losing the second round, landed that left hand. It was looking like Giles was going to cruise to it, maybe a decision victory. Was landing some good shots, was busting him up, but Prates found that straight left hand. I think DC was saying, oh, he's waiting on the knee. The knee was brutal. Every time Giles would start moving forward, Prates would just step in with the knee. And I think he even landed one that kind of grazed the chin as well at one point. He was kind of leaning down. But the knee kind of started the ball rolling for Prates. Then he finds the straight left hand, brutally sleeps Trevin Giles in the second round. Moving up on the card, the very first fight on the main card, Rodolfo Vieira versus Armen Petrosyan. I did not see this coming. First off, Rodolfo Vieira does not pass the eye test. I know he's always been crazy jacked. He looked more jacked in this fight than I've ever seen, and I don't think that's a coincidence. You saw it as gone. Armen Petrosyan was landing good kicks early, was pressuring him, landing some good shots with his hands. Vieira was backing up. Eventually, Vieira shot it on a takedown, got him down, dumped him down. Petrosyan started to kind of get to a knee, get back up, got dragged right back down, got picked up and slammed down. I think he got up one more time and then got slammed down again. Or actually, I think it was two. The first takedown was a dump takedown too, where he got the double leg, picked him up, kind of slammed him down. It happened twice in this fight. And then just kind of mauled him on the ground. Easily got the full mount, and easily got the arm triangle and just finished him. Petrosyan Vieira's so big, so strong. The top pressure is crazy. And, he just set his sights on that arm triangle and found it with literal ease. Moved into full mount with literal ease. Petrosyan only had a little bit of time left. I think he had about 25 seconds when the arm triangle got locked in. He couldn't survive. He tried to survive. He did like 2 little baby taps. He was complaining about it. I think he tapped, went out, and then forgot he tapped. So I'm going to give him a little bit of a pass, but he was complaining when he left the cage too. I don't know how he didn't see the replay on the screen. But Rodolfo Vieira shows how good his takedowns are and shows how good his jiu-jitsu is. Because I thought Petrosyan was going to box him up and stuff the takedowns and use his footwork. I also think the small cage, if I'm Armen Petrosyan, I'm definitely not accepting a fight with Rodolfo Vieira in the small apex cage. But Rodolfo Vieira gets it done, first round arm triangle. Moving up on the card, we have Michael Johnson versus Darrius Flowers. This fight actually pissed me off. I was getting infuriated with this fight. Basically, the first round was competitive. You had Darrius Flowers landing good shots to the body, side kicks to the body. You had Michael Johnson landing good shots with his hands. And I thought it was pretty close. And I just thought Johnson kind of eked it out in the last minute, was landing better shots with his hands, and even got a double leg at the end of the round. So round one, I gave to Michael Johnson. Then round two, Michael Johnson was just lighting up the body nonstop. Flowers started landing some uppercuts in the second round, then immediately just gave up, stops fighting completely. Then gets taken down twice, does absolutely nothing. Just lays on his back. Scrambled up one time. I think he got like feet on the hips, or Michael Johnson started to post up and he kicked him off, got up, got immediately taken back down. Made Michael Johnson look like prime Khabib Nurmagomedov, dumped him back down. Johnson didn't do a whole lot of ground and pound, but he was starting to look for like a north-south choke towards the end of the round when he got the second takedown. And then the third round, Johnson took him down early, controlled him, didn't really get any damage. Flowers got up like the last 90 seconds, landed like a jumping knee, ended up in a scramble. Michael Johnson was kind of down on his knees. He was throwing shots, and it was looking like Michael Johnson was like going to lay there. Maybe he was hurt from the knee. You couldn't really tell how clean the knee landed. And Flowers just kind of stays in close rather than kind of backing up, getting his hips out of the way, getting his legs out of the way, and just piecing him up with ground and pound. Stays in close. Michael Johnson gets in on a single leg. There's a scramble. Flowers is like looking for an arm bar. It kind of looks like he's in a good position. He knows there's 30 seconds. You can hear his corner yelling. There's only 30 seconds left. He just stays in that position, kind of looking for maybe a Kimura or an arm bar, and does nothing. And then finally like lets it go, or gives up on it with like 5 seconds to go and throws little pitter-patter punches. 30-27 Michael Johnson. Darrius Flowers. Gas tank was horrible. Striking the fight IQ was horrible, and the striking didn't really look that good, to be honest. I thought he was going to go out there and be faster than Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson, as old as he is, was faster than Darrius Flowers in this fight, and also way more well-rounded, because Darrius Flowers apparently has no grappling at all. I thought Darrius Flowers going down a weight class would be the bigger guy, would have more power. When he had some success, especially with the side kicks to the body, gave up on him. Had the uppercuts in the second round, gave up on him. No fight IQ. Michael Johnson gets it done via unanimous decision. Moving up on the card, we have Gregory Rodrigues versus Brad Tavares. Gregory Rodrigues gets a third round KO. It was crazy. First round, Rodrigues was super aggressive. Was landing some good shots, got countered at one point in the first round, got hurt a little bit. Tavares was landing some good shots. Gregory Rodrigues was landing some, decent shots and being very aggressive. You had Rodrigues at one point look for a single leg, then kind of Brad Tavares was defending, and then he was up on one leg. You had Rodrigues kind of looking to kind of trip him down. He let go of the leg, immediately started throwing shots, kind of hurt him a bit. There was a weird scramble at one point, then Rodrigues hip tossed him to the ground. And then they were in the clinch position where Rodrigues was landing some knees, was kind of beating up Tavares in the clinch there, where they were playing that game, hand up, hand down, hand up, hand down. And basically it ends the round that way. Rodrigues clearly won the first round. Then the second round, Tavares started to kind of come on strong, was being more aggressive, was landing some good jabs. The jab was landing at will. Rodrigues was still chopping the legs, had a last-minute takedown, but didn't do any damage. So the second round, I thought it was close. But I thought maybe the leg kicks probably stole it for Rodrigues, but I thought it could maybe go either way. And then the third round, but it was definitely, the momentum was starting to shift towards Brad Tavares in that second round. Then in the third round, Rodrigues just came out and said, you know what, I'm going to look for a finish. Just march forward, lands a right hand, just starts marching forward even faster. It's like, okay, I can empty the tank now. It was almost like it was a 5-round fight. He was down 4 rounds in a title fight. He's going for the finish in the 5th round. Just starts smashing him up against the fence. Just nasty flurries. And it was just completely filthy. Just absolutely destroys Brad Tavares. Perfect stoppage, in my opinion. He literally looked like a bobblehead up against the fence. I know somebody, I think it was a standing TKO. Somebody was saying like, early stoppage, I think they might have been trolling, was literally looking like a bobblehead, because Rodrigues was not only swarming him, he was going around the guard, in between, dead center of the guard with some uppercuts, and Tavares' head was just bouncing around. It was crazy. And it was like Rodrigues just decided, all right, I played long enough. Let me go out there and absolutely smash him in the third round. So even if he would have somehow survived, it probably would have been a 10-8 round. And literally, Tavares almost had no offense in the third round at all. And Gregory Rodrigues gets it done via third round TKO. Moving up on the card, the featured fight on the card, we have Ihor Potieria versus Robert Bryczek. Ihor Potieria gets it done via unanimous decision. I think they even scored at 30-27. I thought he lost the first round. Bryczek basically had only a right hand in this fight. There was an eye poke in the first round from Bryczek. Then, you had basically had, in the first round, you had Bryczek just being super aggressive. Then what else was there? Oh, Breachek landed a punch to the balls of Potieria. Mike Beltran was being all like, respect my authority, and kind of like disrespecting him and scalding him. But like the punch was coming in and Potieria blocked it with his forearm and literally redirected it right to his nutsack. And so the first round ended up being like 25 minutes long. Mike Beltran was acting as if Breachek was doing this intentionally. But the first round, relatively uneventful outside of the eye poke and the nut shot. And I thought Breachek, because he landed a couple good right hands, I thought he won the first round, but it was kind of close. You had Potieria clinching up a little bit at the end of the round. Then in the second round, Breachek was just throwing nothing but right hands. You had Potieria just landing, pumping the jab. You had a fake shot at one point from Potieria and then landed like an uppercut on him. And it was clear second round, Potieria took the second round. And then basically in the third round, Potieria had him on skates the entire third round, was just beating him up, hurt him badly. There was times where Breachek was throwing back and it was like, okay, and I think he even connected on one or two of them where it was like, okay, Potieria could end up wading into danger and getting KO'd here, but he just didn't. So Potieria won the third round. I had it scored 29-28. I think the judges, or at least two of the judges, had it 30-27, or a couple of them. I don't remember the exact judges' scorecards, but either way, Potieria gets it done on short notice against Robert Breachek, and Breachek just seemed like too much of a one-trick pony, where Ihor Potieria was pumping the jab, landing good inside leg kicks, mixing in takedowns even if he wasn't able to find them, mixing in clinch work even though it wasn't like super effective. Meanwhile, you have Breachek just eye-poking, punching to the groin, and just throwing right hands. Basically, that's all he did the entire fight. And the third round was the worst round. He took a lot of damage. So it was clearly second and third round for Ihor Potieria. Any other scorecard would have been a brutal robbery if Breachek somehow would have got the decision win. Moving up on the card, we have Dan Ige versus Andre Touchy Fili. Fili was just kind of playing at range, and Dan Ige was trying to close the distance. He had Fili landed some kicks. And basically, you had a nasty right hand from Dan Ige, just lunging in, right hand right on the chin, drops him badly. It was over right there. Dan Ige kind of pauses for a second to see if the ref's going to jump in. Ref doesn't jump in. Boom, one nasty right hand ground and pound shot. It was over. Ref finally jumps in. Nasty win for Dan Ige. Dan Ige is criminally underrated in the featherweight division. I've been saying it for a long time. I thought he beat Josh Emmett. I thought he beat Bryce Mitchell. I'm not some weird Dan Ige sycophant. So, I think Dan Ige is criminally underrated. I think he's a really good fighter. And I think he's a good test for kind of up-and-coming guys. And I know Fili took this on short notice, but Dan Ige just showed nasty power, good striking, and his explosiveness. I mean, he's getting a little bit up there in age, but his explosiveness and his ability to close the distance, I could tell like early the range was a little bit of an issue considering Fili taller, longer, but it really wasn't a problem. I mean, that KO happened so quick, there's really not a whole lot to talk about. Yeah, it was 2 minutes and 43 seconds into round one. So we basically saw Fili kind of use his footwork, use kicks from range, kind of pump the jab a little bit. Didn't really have a whole lot of success. And then boom, Dan Ige drops the right hand on him and just drops him badly and finishes him off. Could have been a walk-off KO had the referee jumped in sooner. So nasty win for Dan Ige. Moving up on the card, the main event, Jack Hermansson versus Joe Pyfer. I did a dedicated breakdown, a main event breakdown on the channel. I'll link it down in the description if you want to go check it out. But Jack Hermansson gets it done via decision. All three judges had it 48-47. I do remember that scorecard. I disagree with the scorecard. I think Jack Hermansson won 4-1. And I went back and rewatched round two, and Jack Hermansson won round two. Basically, the consensus was 1-2 for Pyfer, 3, 4, and 5 for Hermansson. And I don't really have a massive problem with that. But in the second round, Pyfer was swinging and missing, basically. And Hermansson started checking some leg kicks, landed some good leg kicks of his own, landed some good punches of his own. And it was close. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's indefensible to give Joe Pyfer the second round. But if you watch closely, I think Hermansson took the second round. And then after the second round, even if you give it to Pyfer. So the first round, Pyfer landed a couple big shots, was really kind of, beating up the body a little bit in the first and second round, landed some jabs to the body, looking to land big shots, throwing some heavy leg kicks of his own. But after the second round, started to slow down. You had Jack Hermansson pumping the jab, landing leg kicks, brutalizing the calf of Joe Pyfer. And then the third round landed a nasty jab, or it might have been even a left hand. I can't remember. It was definitely left hand, but I can't remember if it was a jab or not, depending on what stance he was in. And Joe Pyfer kind of falls back like he got poked in the eye, but I don't blame him. I think a lot of people are going to shit on him saying he was trying to get a break. I think he genuinely probably thought it was an eye poke, but it was a punch. Then Jack Hermansson moves forward, starts kind of swarming him a little bit, but kind of picks his shots well. And honestly, It was the jab and the leg kicks from Jack Hermansson. It was the jabs and the leg kicks. You had Pyfer in the third round shooting on takedowns. Hermansson was stuffing them with ease. And then in the fourth round, just more of the same. Jab, jab, leg kick. Jab, jab, leg kick. And the leg kicks were affecting Pyfer. And Pyfer in the fourth round had like a 30-second burst or 40-second burst where he kind of was moving forward, but Hermansson rolling very good with the shots. You know, he was absorbing a lot of them on his shoulders and as well as the forearms. He was just really hard to hit clean in this fight. And as the fight went on, it was like Hermansson was getting tired. In the fourth round, clearly lost. Hermansson was beating him up with the leg kicks. The leg kicks were clearly affecting him. It was nasty calf kicks from Jack Hermansson. The jabs were busting Joe Pyfer up. And then in the fifth round, same thing. Jack Hermansson jab, leg kicks, and then had a takedown with like 3 minutes left to go. Controlled him from like half guard for the majority of the rest of the fifth round. And then at one point, Pyfer got to full guard, but really wasn't able to do anything. It never even was in a threat to get back up. So even if you don't want to give round 2 to Hermansson, it's clearly 3, 4, and 5, but I had it 4-1. After rewatching round 2, watching it live, I had it razor close probably to Pyfer, but Pyfer just too much too soon. I think the UFC botched this one with Pyfer. They should have gave him a more manageable matchup like Paul Craig or something like that. And on top of that, they should have booked it for a big pay-per-view like maybe main card opener, and Joe Pyfer would have been a 3-round fight. Then we're looking at it. I know Hermansson could have had a different strategy, but 3-round fight, you're looking at Pyfer potentially winning that. So I think Joe Pyfer was a victim of his own confidence, and his confidence came from, it's impossible to silence all the noise when everyone's just, you know, hyping you up. You got Dana White hyping you up. You got Dana White privilege getting a top 10 opponent, or I think Jack Hermansson was ranked number 11, but you get all this hype. It's hard to kind of drown that out. He believed his own hype. He went in there against Jack Hermansson, and he found out there's levels to the game. Now, I still don't think he's a complete fraud. I still don't think like he's the worst fighter ever. He's young. He can still improve. He has good power. His takedowns need a lot of work. He never even came close to taking Jack Hermansson down. He had decent timing on him, but never even came close. His cardio needs work, and I hope he doesn't go out and make a bunch of excuses. His post-fight interview, he already started to say, oh, I was talking to too much media and, you know, this and that about the leg kicks, and I think he even might have mentioned the eye was bothering him. I hope he doesn't go on like an excuse world tour, but, you know, I talked about it going in this fight. Even though I picked Joe Pyfer, I said, I can see him getting exposed here. Hasn't fought anywhere near the level of competition of Jack Hermansson. He's getting way too much hype. These Dana White Contender Series guys, it's almost a ruse sometimes. And I almost want to pick against them, but then I kind of convince myself, well, I'm only kind of going against it because I'm thinking, oh, I'm getting tricked here. So it's kind of weird to pick some of these fights sometimes, but the Dana White and the MMA media were just hyping up Joe Pyfer. He looked good. Don't get me wrong. He looked good in the lead up to this fight, but he just didn't have what it took to beat Jack Hermansson. Jack Hermansson's defensive responsibility on the feet, his game plan, and his technical ability, pumping the jab, picking his shots, slamming into that leg kick, backing up when he needed to, and avoiding those big shots of Joe Pyfer, especially early, to come on strong late. Perfect game plan against Joe Pyfer. And I never want to hear the narrative Francis Ngannou has more power, or I must mix that up, that Joe Pyfer has more power than Francis Ngannou. Jack Hermansson took some of his best shots, and he didn't even go down. He was never even really rocked. So I don't ever want to hear that again. Dana White, I know he's pissed right now. I know his shit-eating grin is gone right now because he wanted Joe Pyfer to win. And I can't believe Jamal Hill, who's Joe Pyfer's teammate or friend, saying, clear 3-2 for Joe Pyfer. Jamal Hill's smoking crack if he honestly believes that. But ultimately, Jack Hermansson gets it done. I think Joe Pyfer will be back. I think he can be a top 15 guy. I think he would beat Paul Craig tomorrow. I think that's the fight they'll probably book next to get him into that top 15. But I just think to step up in a main event, 5-round main event, too much too soon for Joe Pyfer. So don't be Joe Pyfer. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. You want to check out my full main event breakdown, link it in the end cards. And I'll see you guys in the next video.